Hi guys, welcome to the Breaking Indie podcast. On today's episode, we are going to be talking to Hossein Martin Fazeli about his film Am Gitxsan. We have a little discussion about filmmaking, politics, and philosophy. So stay tuned and check out another episode of the Breaking Indie podcast. It's a program for filmmakers by filmmakers. It's the Breaking Indie podcast. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Breaking Indie. Today we are here with Hossein Martin Fazeli, a filmmaker who's got a project at the Santa Fe Film Festival, and we are very excited to have you here. Traditionally, I have a co-host with me, so I feel a little half prepared today.
Yeah.
So you're just stuck with me.
Sure. Hey, I mean, everything it sounds good. I think.
We'll
to be honest with you, I'm jet lagged a bit. So,
okay. Where did you fly in from?
I was before I came here. I spent a few months in India. So about a week ago, I left India to Vancouver, and then a few days ago, Vancouver to Santa Fe. So it's basically jet lag over jet lag.
I see. And you normally live in Vancouver? Yeah?
I do live in Vancouver.
Okay.
That's my base.
Yeah.
I mean, originally I'm Iranian. I'm Persian. I'm a child of the Iranian Revolution of 1979. And so, but I made Canada my home. I went to the most tolerable city possible in Canada.
I do love
weather-wise,
Vancouver.
yeah, Vancouver.
I grew up just south of Vancouver, so that was always when we were 18. It's like, oh, let's go to Canada.
Really interesting.
So,
but you're American.
Yes, but I grew up just south of Bellingham, which is like a half hour or less from the border. It's
That's
just like
right.
a border town.
That's right. Yeah.
So
I've
we
been there actually.
did that once or twice, where we went up to Vancouver and got into trouble and got my mom's car towed. And yeah, it was great. It was good times. Good times.
All right.
So was Vancouver your first relocation of residence? Like, was that your first stop, or did you kind of move around in all those years?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, the problem with exile is lack of choice in many instances. So you don't choose your destination. You don't choose, for example, the country of your birth. You're American because you were born here, because your parents decided, to have you here, of course. And so you don't choose your country, and then when you become an exile, then you don't choose your second country. Canada was not my choice. I didn't want to go to Canada. I wanted to come to America, or maybe go to France, or go to England. But because I was under the supervision, like the whole process of sending people to these different countries, all these exiles and political asylum seekers, is a question of ration. All right, how many countries, which country takes how many refugees or political exiles or asylum seekers? And so at the time, Canada, basically my name was given to the Canadian Embassy. We were 5 people all living in Dubai at the time, all of us political activists or human rights activists of some sort. And so 5 of us, one was sent to Germany, one was sent to Switzerland, one was sent to Norway, and 2 were sent to Canada.
Okay.
And so we were living together for 4 years, and all of a sudden one day, you're basically, yes, exactly. So it's they don't ask you where you want to go. You say, okay, now Canada is available, you go to Canada. And if you say no, then, best case scenario, you've got to wait for another couple of years till the next opening happens. And if worst possible scenario, so really, you want to decide where to go, then you're on your own. Goodbye. So yeah, I mean, Canada was another choice. But then, it became home.
Yeah. So where in your journey, amongst all of that and your humanitarian rights and activism and stuff, where did you find film, or how did that kind of come into play for you?
Right. Somebody said when you are 5 years old, all 5-year-old boys want to become either an army general or an actor, one of these two, professions. for me, I mean, I was always interested in the arts, particularly writing, but I had a passion for cinema from early childhood. Because for me, film, when my parents took me to a theater to watch a film, and these were usually American films that were dubbed in Iran, we're talking about 1970s. Watching a film was a visceral experience for me. It was a physical experience. It was not mental or even emotional. Like, I remember my mother telling me that, sometimes, for example, imagine they were watching a Western film, and then there was a shootout, and in the middle of this shootout on the screen, I would actually get up from my seat and participate in the fight.
Oh, like you.
Exactly. It was visceral for me. And so when I grew up, I always missed that experience, that visceral experience of getting outside of, being pulled out of your reality, put in a different reality, but with the same intensity or even more intense than your actual reality as a kid or as a teenager, right? Because as I said, I participated in those scenes and sequences. And so I always wanted to re-experience those experiences, to revisit those experiences. And at some point I became interested in helping others experience what I used to experience as a kid. And so, and I've been trying, since to do that, to create that moment sometimes. And really, to me, a film is a combination of different moments. Like sometimes, if you're lucky, you might be able to kind of get that purity, right, in an image, in a shot, in a scene, in a 2-minute sequence, and turn people from viewers into witnesses. And so if I can achieve that, I would feel very rewarded, particularly because in the context of the cinema I do, which is of course very social, also political, I find that to be rewarding, because that would inspire action, and we need action, So that's my ambition. And of course, I've been going from failure to failure to failure to failure, right? It's not an easy task,
As is often the journey of life.
Exactly. But I'm totally fine with that, because that's such a high goal that if I can achieve it even for a moment, I would feel lucky.
Where do you find the balance between being a participant and being an observer?
Right.
Because I feel like a lot of times as filmmakers, and I'm sure the act of observing is part of the participation.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of times you're kind of capturing and reporting. And I'm curious what your experience, or how you might feel or balance those two different roles in that capacity.
There is a difference between reading the description of a love affair and having one. As teenagers, when you have it, when you read about what, for example, lovemaking can feel like, and then going and actually having a girlfriend and making love to her or making love to him, right? To me, that's the difference. I think a lot of times when you're watching a film, there is something that separates you from that reality, the reality which is being portrayed on the screen. There is always your mind at work. You always understand that you're experiencing a secondhand experience. Okay. Now, if that secondhand experience becomes a firsthand experience, if you can relate to the characters or to the story or to the issue at hand to such an intense degree that it becomes your issue, that character becomes your sister or your brother or your friend or comrade, he becomes you yourself, okay, for an hour, okay, or for 2 days or for 2 months, then that transition has happened. And for me, for example, a very clear example for me was when I went, I think it was about 15 years ago, I watched a film by Lars von Trier, the Danish filmmaker, called Breaking the Waves. This is 1997. And after I left the theater, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I didn't want to see anyone. Okay, I'm at a film festival. Okay, people know me. I went, I bought 2 bottles of wine. I went home. I drank, smoked, and wrote until 5 o'clock in the morning.
I think Lars von Trier would really like that.
And that's the only time, actually, he does that, in my opinion. At least, or his film, his cinema, did that to me. Because he's made tens of films. I think Breaking the Waves is the only film of his. But then again, it's really about the kind of character you are, the kind of upbringing, you have had, and how you relate. But I look for, when I, for example, again, coming to Breaking the Waves, it's not a film that, I could only watch that film once. I cannot watch that film a second time. It's too intense.
Yeah, some of those just like amazing films, like you're like, I'm glad I saw that. I'm glad I had that experience.
Right.
I don't necessarily need to repeat it.
Right, exactly.
But it sticks with you.
Yeah.
And then, so at what point, at what age, or at what stage in life did you pick up a camera?
When I left Iran as a teenager, then I ended up in Canada, and I never thought about becoming a filmmaker. Like, I never thought about studying cinema per se. I don't think, to be honest with you, I think that this whole business model called film schooling is an absolute fraud. And I went to 3 film schools myself, right?
The ironic thing about this is we're in my film school,
right?
And I was the last class to graduate from this school before it went bankrupt.
Oh.
So I haven't been in this building for years.
Right.
This closed in 2009.
Right.
It reopened for a second as a different school, but they also went bankrupt, just like 2 years later did the exact same thing.
Right.
And that's really funny. It's been very nostalgic to be back in this stage for the Santa Fe Film Festival, and it's like, oh, I made multiple music videos in this place. And when I came in here and started setting up, once again, I have no crew. All of this is just me, Cole. It's been so weird. And I do agree, like, especially in my case where this was a private college, it was quite expensive. Luckily, I had a lot of scholarships to help. Thanks, Mom. But coming out of it, it's so frustrating because nobody knows the College of Santa Fe anymore. Like, there is no alumni really association. There's nothing, those like programs. So really it was the education that I got out of it that all is really the only thing to hold on to. And I think for a lot of people, especially in their early 20s or even 19, whatever, they don't really have the appreciation of, I'm here for the education. It's like, I'm here for college, and it's kind of whatever. So something like film school, it does become a very subjective experience. It really is like, you have to, if you're going to do that, be adult enough or be aware enough of really making that experience count, because it's, an art degree isn't something that really, quote unquote, matters. You know, in the real world. You're not going to just go out and be like, oh, well, I went to school for it, so now I can get a job. So
I have a degree from Harvard in film production. Okay.
Right.
Okay. No, it's not. It's not a theoretical field. It's a very practical field. And the fact of the matter is that 90% of film school graduates never make money making films. It's a fact. Everywhere. Now, show me another business with the same degree, with the same percentage of failure that is still in operation. Because when you go to film school, you're promised. And of course, I mean, when you go to film, again, 75, 80% of people who go to film schools, they want to become directors. right? And at some point they decide, okay, no, maybe directing is not really something, becoming a gaffer. I mean, as a gaffer, for example, as a cameraman, you can make money much easier than as a
and
director.
God forbid you ever went to a film school to become a gaffer. No offense to
Right.
gaffers, you just don't need to go to film school to do
That's
that.
right, that's right. But I mean, a lot of them actually, I mean, I remember, when I went to film school, we had, in our class, we were 16. And then when we graduated, 3 of us got jobs as gaffers.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
And they were the only ones who got jobs, right?
I mean, I got a job as a PA. I mean, that's worse than a gaffer.
That's right,
Like,
exactly.
Again, you don't have to go to film school to be a PA. You don't have to do
It's not really a
that.
job.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but my point is that the reason why, I think there's a reason why it's such a failed business model because of, misplaced emphasis. I don't think, I went, as I said, I mean, I have nothing against film schools. I mean, I went to 3 film schools myself. I spent, $60,000 on my film education. But I learned what not to do, not what to do. And then I came out, and then I had to go through this process of failing, one after another. That was you learn from your failures,
Right.
you don't learn from your successes. So my failures as a filmmaker, those were my film schools. Okay, I learned, what to do and what not to do again. But film school itself, by itself, it didn't really teach me much. And it's a very, I mean, let's face it, it's a very tough terrain. It's almost, in some areas, it's like, a mafia terrain. Like literally, it's guarded, by people who own the territory.
Absolutely,
Okay?
yeah.
If you want to enter the territory, you've got to pay tariffs, pay something, okay, or, kiss somebody's, boots. It's like that. It's not easy to become a filmmaker who makes films, makes a living, and then goes on from project to project to project. And I think in that sense, I mean, I personally think that I am very lucky. But then again, I don't care much. I do what I like to do. Right? I don't work for a television network. I don't work on commission. I write, direct, and produce. I don't even work with people's material. Not that I don't want to, but I try to kind of bring this particular worldview that is mine to the screen. And I'm not saying it's anything solid necessarily, but it's some perception of reality, the socio-political reality or realities of the world. As somebody who was thrown into that reality at an early age, unjustly. When you're 15, 16, you're not supposed to be thinking politics. When you're 15, you're supposed to be chasing girls. Okay, so I miss that, right? Chasing girls happened for me 10 years later. It was a little too late, but I think as a filmmaker, knowing all those things and having an urge to investigate, I'm very curious. Like, for example, here right now, I mean, and of course you can cut any part of this as you wish, but I mean, Trump is back in power, okay? Now, I have friends who hate his guts, Canadians, Americans. I have friends who voted for him. Mm-hmm. And I'm not talking about, truck drivers. I'm talking about people, businesswomen.
You won the popular vote.
Yeah, I won the popular vote.
Yeah.
And so, so for me, I think it's too simplistic to say, oh, the guy is evil, okay, and the country is dumb. I think you've got to ask questions. Why does he happen? How did he happen? Right? Mm-hmm. What's happening? Right? And it's not just an American phenomenon. It's a global phenomenon.
It is. I see
everywhere.
that in a lot of other countries that are kind of, I wouldn't say copycatting, but they're in a very similar position.
Modi in India, Hungary, Slovakia, Brazil, just, till 4 years ago.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I have a feeling for someone in your position, I can't imagine, you could make a film without politics in it of some degree.
No, I think everything is political, to be honest
Yeah.
with you. I think the food we eat is political. Like, to me, it's such a wide range. I mean, I don't really like the word politics, because it carries such bad energy, such, I would say, a stiff energy. But, let's call it social issues, right? I mean, everything is a social issue. Food is a social issue. I mean, for the sickness of society, like 50% of people in this country and in Canada have chronic issues, chronic problems. And these are guys who know their chronic problems, right? Because a lot of them are having those chronic problems, but they're asymptomatic. They become symptomatic at some point. But it takes a toll on your system anyway, whether you feel the symptoms or not. So I am thinking that if you are living in a country, in a society where 50% of people are sick, and I just want to know what kind of fathers and mothers and co-workers and friends, a person with digestive issues or a person with lung issues or chronic issues can be. Are you going to be the best father you can be when you have to take, when you're basically irritated, 15 hours a day because, you can't eat, because you've got food sensitivities, because gluten doesn't work with your system. And by the way, gluten was something that, we digested for thousands of years. Before we hit 21st century, gluten was always there. So what I'm saying is that food is a social issue, right? The fact that, Nixon actually is the guy who said, we don't want food to become a political issue, so let's produce cheap food. Right? Let's make food as cheap an issue, an item as possible, so that people don't vote based on the price of food. This was a decision that was made in the 70s. It was a political decision. I don't think anything you think about, for example, got the spirituality. Spirituality is a social issue. Because human society deals with human consciousness, and spirituality is about human consciousness. Who am I? Where am I coming from? Where am I going? What is the meaning of all this, right? At the end of the day, we die, to me, everything is a social. I mean, there is
absolutely.
Animal rights, the way we're dealing with dolphins and orcas, SeaWorld is a social issue, right? Wall Street is a social issue. I don't see any issue that is not a social issue. Whether we treat it as a social issue or not is a different story. But in reality, it is a social issue. War is a social issue. To me, it's just, a wide range, a very wide range, and it's really all-encompassing. God is a social issue, if you want to think about it, because, God is not in people's houses. God is outside. God is in churches and mosques and synagogues. And what's happening right now in Israel and Gaza, people are killing in the name of God. Their gods, okay? I think in the southern part of America, church going is a serious, serious business, okay? Islamic Revolution of 1979 happened in the name of God. Because a large number of people decided that God was not a private issue anymore. It was a public issue, right? And so, how many millions of tens of millions of people have been killed in the name of God in the past,
throughout history, throughout ever.
Exactly.
Yeah, well, that's the big thing about government, right?
Yeah.
Is it's a few different ideas of how to take a group of people in large amounts in a close proximity and find a way to coexist.
Right.
And when you exist with anything as primal as food or as abstract as religion.
Right.
All of these things are very important to people.
Yeah.
My passion for tacos may seem trivial, but in some ways that it is still political. Do I go to Taco Bell or do I go to the local taco stand? Who do I support financially? And in this day and age, more than ever, everything is so radically politicized.
Yeah.
But to your point, when we coexist as a group of people in a government, and everything has its place, everything does matter, it's impossible to separate those issues because it's part of the existence. It's part of the collective network of people, and therefore it's part of the conversation.
Yeah, and it affects your life.
Yeah.
Like there is no way you can avoid being influenced and being impacted by the politics. Doesn't matter, you may decide not to vote, but you cannot escape the consequences of not voting.
Sure.
Okay, so it catches up with you, regardless of who you are and how political you are. And I'm not particularly political. I'm not a big fan of Michael Moore's cinema. Okay, despite the fact that I really admire his skills and he's a funny guy, right? I mean, you put really documentary cinema on the map single-handedly. So I respect him, but I don't think we're here to try to find answers. I think we're here to pose the right questions as filmmakers. It's very important, to ask the right question is 75% of it. It's like, right casting is 75% of, filmmaking. If you cast terribly, your film is going to be terrible, regardless of the story and the camera work and the locations and the budget. Okay, because people go to see a film because they want to follow a story, and the basis of a good story is good characters, right? You've got to cast well. The same with documentary cinema and social issues, right? I mean, our job is to pose the right questions as filmmakers, and not to find answers. And I know a very few filmmakers who have that humbleness about them, that regardless of how much you know and how much you've read and how much you've seen, experienced, there's a lot you don't know. Mm-hmm. So be humble about it. Try to understand, try to kind of understand the experiences of people you disagree with, people that you even hate, okay? Like, it's so easy to demonize the other, so easy. And I'm not talking about, kind of the cliche stuff, right? I'm talking about us today living in this society, right? I mean, when I came from Iran and, went to Canada, okay, I lived in a very conservative town called Edmonton, all right. It was almost a redneck town. So, I mean, that was my first experience of racism. I had never experienced racism before in my own country. In that sense, I feel lucky, right? Because, I see second generation, for example, kids who experience racism at the age of 5, 6. To me, it's a very dehumanizing experience because you don't have to deal with that. Why should somebody hate me or dislike me because of my color or because of my name or because of my ethnicity? It's incomprehensible to a kid. But as an adult, you can deal with that, okay? And I deal, but it was not easy, it was hurtful. Why am I judged before, I open my mouth, And so I understand that, but at the same time, I can understand him, it took me 20 years to be able to walk in the shoes of the racist, okay, who judged me, okay, in 1980s Edmonton, who had never seen a foreigner before, okay. The only foreigners he had seen were on his television set, okay, CNN, killing people and maiming people in the Middle East, right? When that is your reality of the other, right? Of course you become
very specific, very limited.
Limited knowledge, exactly.
Yeah.
That's why media is so important, and that's why the media landscape is changing so much. They say the ones who control media control reality.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. That's what's, and look at, again, coming back to Trump. One of the reasons why there is such a revolt in this country against a big chunk of it is this revolt against mainstream narratives that are built by mainstream media outlets. Like CNN is losing, its power. It started to lose its power, starting in 2016. Big time, right? You read rapidly, because, and I understand why. And I'm not saying Fox is any different, but, the need for a media outlet that doesn't work based on a specific agenda or ideology, that there is something called the will or the need of the people, that profit over people is not really an option. To understand that, look, these things are happening right now, but before I was not conscious of it. I was not even aware of it myself. But then, things happen. You start to question things. And then you realize that as a filmmaker, as a media maker, you have the ultimate power in your hands. Okay? Mm-hmm. This is the weapon. This is the ultimate weapon you and I, people like you and I have. All right, the film festival is not about, celebrating certain films. A film festival can be a very powerful weapon. And I look at film, I look at the camera as a gun. It's the most powerful gun, ever, produced. But you've got to be able to use it properly, okay? And I think those who use this medium properly, they can really impact a lot of change. They can inspire a lot of change. And that's my aspiration personally. I want to be part of that change. But I don't want to be a cutthroat change maker. I want to be a compassionate change maker, because at the end of the day, it's not about what I think. It's not even about the fact that I'm right and you're wrong, or you're right and I'm wrong. At the end of the day, it's about how kind we are to each other, regardless of what we think, and regardless of whether we have the truth on our side or not, And that kindness has become key for me, because I was a cutthroat activist myself. I come from that part. But that darkness, I have passed through that dark tunnel. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go back there. It's ugly, And it's not good for you. It's like, we talk about all this, sexual abuse cases and sexual violence against women, right? People talk about women as victims. Of course, they're not victims. But nobody talks about how sexual violence victimizes men. It's not only about women. If you do that to a woman, you have done the greatest disservice to yourself as a man. That's the way I see it. You are the first victim of this damn thing. So I look at it from that perspective. Whatever. If I make a film about women's rights, I'm trying to reconcile with the female part inside me. And if I don't, if it's not internal, if it's external, it's going to be superficial anyway. It has to come from inside, okay? And it is inside. You have a female part, I have a female part, April has a male part, male side. We all, we're all the same in that sense, okay? So going deep inside and saying, you know what, I'm thinking of living in a society where I can be kind to me,
Yeah.
And
It's gonna be hard.
Of course. And to be honest with you, society doesn't even want it, doesn't even allow it. We got to be, a bunch of sheep, wolves, competing against each other. We don't have to. And so somebody comes and asks that question, why? Why are we doing this, And, really, I really think that very simplistic, stupid question, that's why I love kids, because they ask fundamental questions. They're not burdened by intellect, okay, or philosophy or academia. They're not burdened by these things. They're living, and they're a keen observer of life, okay? Let's ask that stupid question. Let's ask that simple question. I was born on this planet Earth. Why should I pay to live on it? It's my home. That may sound stupid, but to me it's a profound question. And I've been dealing with that for the past, 5-10 years. Why are we paying to live on this on this territory that is ours? This is my home, But anyway, if you start asking those questions, think about the situation right now. Some people are talking about this whole idea of the basic income, right?
Sure.
I think it's a fascinating idea. And actually, there was a social experimentation with this in the 70s, partially in America and in Canada. It proved to be very successful, the small communities, right? These communities became debt-free within a few years because the productivity went up,
Sure.
right? But now it's back in mainstream. If you talked about this 10 years ago, 15 years ago, they would think that you're a fucking
Oh, such
commie.
a taboo, yeah. Well, and that's the thing, is our socialism, oh my God. But it's like, with the job market and economy changing as drastically as it is, you have things, that are, you have factors like COVID, or you have social change, but then of course you have automation, you have AI, you have things that are really going to have a large impact on the way that people look at what it means to have a steady job, or what it means to have a basic income, just a little bit of security, financial security. I think we really do need to get away from the stigma that was created with that and really examine. I really thought that COVID was actually going to do a lot in that way of kind of
it opened up.
recalibrating the social consciousness of money, which, let's take a second. I'd like to thank our sponsors, Smith & Wesson. This podcast is brought to you by brwdigital.com, a video production company based in Santa Fe, servicing the needs of businesses and content creators worldwide. brwdigital.com. So thank you. Now that we've paid the bills, which we're still accepting sponsorships, any type of sponsorship. If you guys give us money, we'll find a way to justify it.
Basic income, right?
Yeah, I need to pay those bills, guys. Podcasts don't produce themselves. In this case, they do. But yeah, so with all that said, how does this relate into what you're doing right now? What the project that you're here with or what you're involved with? Let's talk a little bit about where you're at currently as an artist.
Funnily enough, I was approached because, of course, I'm working on multiple projects at the same time, like any other independent filmmaker. You have a project in pre-production, one in production, one in post-production, all of them. And I was working on a project in post-production, and I'll tell you about that project. You may want to run the trailer for it. It's an amazing project, I think, amazing story. But I was approached by some native chiefs who came to town to meet with me. And I took them to a Persian restaurant near my house, and I sat with them, and they wanted a film about their nation. And I was surprised because I'm not indigenous, I'm not native, right? And I said, look, thank you for the trust. I'm not sure if I'm qualified. I've not even spent a day on a reserve, right, in my entire life. Anyway, they invited me to their territory, Lakhyap, as they call it, and I went up north, and I found fascinating people. The most important aspect of a good documentary film is the interviewee. Okay, I cast my documentaries like I cast my fictional films. Right? So I pay attention to everything, the voice, the looks, and the articulation, level of articulation, all of that. Because that's what carries the film at the end of the day. And I found some very, very articulate and very passionate and, pure souls, in their territories. And so I also discovered some stories, beautiful stories. And so I said, yeah, you have a film, And then they asked me to put together a proposal, which I did, and they approved it. And then I went to film the film, and it took us about 2 years to complete it. And we had a lot of challenges, like a lot of challenges, because these are colonized communities, right? And we should not really try to romanticize them. We're talking about a high degree of alcohol consumption, drug abuse, domestic violence, 80%, 70% welfare dependency, lack of education, stuff like that. Like when I was living in the territories, I think every week we had, a couple of teenage suicides. Teenage, right? 17, 16, 18. So the degree of violence is tremendous, right? It's like it's not Canada. It's not America. It's it's Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
It's Uganda. It's Bangladesh.
The original American refugees and
Exactly.
Canadian at this point as well.
Yeah. And so it was quite challenging, but at the same time, I really met this wonderful people. Okay, and then one thing that I realized was, while filming, was that most films about Native Canadians or Native Americans, these are films that lack articulation. Like, people who, the interviews, the characters in the films, are people who are dealing with a lot of issues, all right, from drug abuse to alcohol abuse to the rest of it. And so that kind of causes or creates this false narrative that these people are not smart. Because it's articulation basically that makes you sound smart or makes you smart at the end of the day. And I met a number of very articulate natives, all right, in the territories. People with 2 university degrees who had decided to live there, right? They fish, you look at them, they look like peasants, okay, but they're such wise people, men and women. And so, and then I found my character, a kid who really loved.
Because you just gave me a thought about that.
Yeah.
Something growing up that I experienced was a lot of prejudice towards kind of Mexican immigrants.
Right.
And I remember I love to point out to people when they're like, "Why don't you learn how to speak English better, man? Like, you're in our country, blah, 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 idiot." I was like, English is their second language.
Right.
That means they speak at least more than one language. How many languages do you speak? That's right. So technically they're kind of smarter than you?
Right.
Got it. So why don't you just shut up?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like that's just like a prejudice that people forget about is like, for people who English is a second language, it's not that you're stupid.
Right. Right.
Quite often you're practicing a muscle that a lot of us don't.
Right.
So I just like to always kind of
absolutely.
remind people of that
Yeah.
when they get frustrated that it's like, you don't know how to speak English, you're dumb, and like you're just an idiot, and you're like, no, actually they're trying harder than you are.
Right.
So
Right.
I don't know, I always like to
No, absolutely. Kudos
remind
to you.
people of that.
Yeah, that's
But going back to what you were saying, sir, thank you for the interruption.
No.
But you cast
Important
your documentaries
Yeah,
like you
yeah.
would cast a traditional narrative film.
Narrative film. And so I met these amazing people, and then I met my character, he was a 17-year-old Gitxsan boy, who was in love with his culture, right? I mean, he spoke Gitxsan. All right, everybody was he was born and raised in Vancouver. Everybody in the territories, all those kids wanted to escape and go to Vancouver. This guy from Vancouver is trying to escape and go to his territories, to his
Interesting, yeah.
And so I met with him, and of course I traveled with him. And then so he goes to his territory, and then he starts to learn about his culture. He starts to learn about the history of colonialism, about the residential school system. And then based on his experiences while he's living on his territory, he starts to pen a letter to the Prime Minister of the country, Prime Minister Trudeau, that telling his story, that look, I am a 17-year-old, 18-year-old Gitxsan individual, and I visited my ancestral home, and this is what I witnessed, what I saw, okay? And I think you as the leader of the country, you bear some responsibility. I want you to know these things. I want you to actually meet with me as a kid who is in love with his culture, right? And talk to me, take me seriously. Because what has been happening, not only in Canada, but also in America, a lot of lip service.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Yeah.
And aside from lip service, a lot of money that ends up in the garbage can. And this I saw also in Europe, right? I mean, the Roma, for example, minority. If I give a broken soul $1 million, it's gonna fuck it up. It's simple, okay? You first fix the soul, and then you give that person money. Okay, money is not going to fix anything. It's not going to fix a toxic, person or personality or situation. Money by itself doesn't do anything. The reason why we had civil rights, okay, in America was people like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali and Langston Hughes, people who became role models. Okay? You need role models, and so. And this is something I realized a long time ago, that you cannot fix the system by just pouring money, okay, into it. That's what the government does, if it does it, okay. But even that is a half-hearted, half-assed, initiative, right? They don't really do it properly. For example, in this territory, like, the Gitxsan territory, we're talking about 36,000 square miles of land and water, right? And the government, companies, private companies and government, they basically, just the logging companies take something like $2 billion worth of logs out of that territory every year. $2 billion. $2 billion. How much do the Gitxsan get? A less than like one-fifth of a percent of that money, and that's their logs. Okay, so you start to ask yourself this question. Okay, something happened. Okay, 160 years ago, 200 years ago, whatever. At that time, Europeans thought they were the best. Okay, and and this has been human history. I don't really demonize Europe in that sense. The Egyptians did it before the Europeans.
We're doing it right now.
Right, that's right. Persians did it before, the Europeans. The Egyptians did it. The Chinese did it. Okay, this has been the history of the world. But it happened here, right, with this European migration. And so it happened. Whatever happened, happened. But let's be just about it. Let's say, okay, terrible things happened. Let's not continue, okay, in the same spirit. Let's not continue in the same breath, okay. Let's negotiate in good faith. And let's have a good deal, a just deal, all right? This is your territory. We do the logging 50-50. Something like that. But that doesn't happen. So when you see that, when you see the reality, and then you go to that territory, and then in a place where there is so much suicide and domestic violence, there is no hospital. Because there is no money to build a hospital. It's a small clinic. Why? Because a good full-blown hospital is going to cost $150 million. But $150 million is a fraction of the money that these companies get out of that place a year.
Talking about $2 billion.
$2 billion, exactly. So you see, there is some kind of an imbalance, okay? And so the government is responsible for that. I don't think it's just the private companies, pipeline, the rest of it. So that became my story, and then of course I brought Gabor Mate, who's a Canadian celebrity who has worked a lot with trauma, particularly Indigenous related trauma, traumatic experiences. I brought him on board, and kind of contextualized the whole thing. I talked to him for a couple of hours. Beautiful man, amazing, mind. And so I followed the kid in his journey, and I talked to chiefs. I talked to pretty amazing, articulate, chiefs and activists, and put the film together. To be honest with you, I did not even know till the very end. But that's the case with every film. I did not know I would have a film, okay, until 3-4 months before the end of the editing process. I think it's Martin Scorsese who says, if you go to your editing room the first day after, your filming is done, if you watch your footage and you don't want to kill yourself, there's something wrong. So that was my feeling until just 2-3 months before the end of the process. But anyway, the film is done, and we've been lucky with the reception the film has received so far. I think accepted into 20 film festivals so far, and we're quite grateful for that. And of course, the journey continues. But for me, really, the question at the end of the day is how many people, particularly how many natives, a film like this can inspire to become a larger person, a more involved person, a more active person, a more conscious person. And so that is to be seen.
Yeah, well, New Mexico's a great place for that too. I mean, there's Santa Fe especially has always been a melting pot of traditional Native, Spanish, Anglo. But there's also a great school right outside on the edge of town called IAIA, the Institute of American Indian Arts, and they've got also a really great film program, and it's been really awesome to see more young people who traditionally probably wouldn't have had that much exposure or have those opportunities to share a voice.
Maybe I should show the film there.
You probably should. I could probably get you in touch with some of the people there. And I'm actually looking at possibly doing a master's in creative writing there. And like, even though I'm not native, like they're like, yeah, you don't have to be to enjoy the education.
Maybe you were native in your past life.
That'd be cool. I'd like that. But yeah, no, that's, and also like New Mexico's got a really great kind of native culture in its own film community.
Right.
So like Angelique Midthunder is a huge casting. She did the casting for like Reservation Dogs.
Right.
And she lives here in town, and her daughter's Amber Midthunder, who has really taken off over the last few years. She's in that movie Prey that came out a couple years ago, and she's doing all kinds of awesome stuff. And then her husband is also an actor. Like you've got Wes Studi who lives in town, and there's just like these awesome pockets in that community. And I obviously don't know enough, but I'm always like really excited and to meet more and more Native filmmakers. So I feel like it would be great to have more showings and screenings of your film and try to integrate it more into the kind of like the local theater network here of things, because I know there's a lot of people who won't have the opportunity to see it this weekend that would love to see it and benefit from that. And then do you have like any social media or anything you might want to plug while we're here?
Oh yes.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'll send you the information, and also we have a website, we have a trailer and stuff like that, and feel free to.
And the name of the film one more time?
The name of my film is I Am Gitxsan, Gitxsan, Gitxsan in the language of the Gitxsan people. It means the people of the river, because I mean these people, still live by the banks of the Skinner River, which is the second largest river in British Columbia.
Amazing. Fantastic.
Sure.
Well, I hope that you get a great distribution deal and that we can watch the streaming soon.
Thank you. I hope so too.
Otherwise, we'll post some links below and you can follow their journey.
Sure.
So, thank you so much for being here today.
Absolutely,
It's a program for filmmakers by filmmakers. It's the Breaking Indie